Welcome to laughingplace.com. It is September 24th. Today is the day that Rick Riordan's next Percy Jackson book, Percy Jackson and the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, has hit the bookstores in North America. And I am very fortunate and very lucky to have this opportunity to interview Rick about his work. And welcome to Laughing Place, Rick.
Hey, thanks, Bill. It's always a pleasure.
Well, it's been great to see you. The last time I think we had about 5 minutes in season one, the press
Mhm.
interviews there, and I had mountains of questions, but I think I got away with two good ones there. So always great to have a chance to have a chat with you about your work.
Yeah.
Um, you have a new book. You have a new book coming out today. You are, dare I say, fairly deep into production of season two,
Yeah, that's fair.
and I gotta wonder. How do you feel right now? Do you have you been able to almost section off the book as this is completely different, even though it's got the same character? Do you view this as something different than the show, or do you have your equal worry and wonder about what's going to happen for both things?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think both things are true. They're certainly different, and I try to treat them as different projects. And sometimes it's really nice to be able to take a break from one and go to the other. On the other hand, I mean, they definitely inform one another. When I was working on the first of these new Percy books, which, as I think you and I have talked about, I mean, I only started doing them because of the TV show, and it was kind of a chance to, thank fans and go back to Percy's voice. But at any rate, when I was doing that first book, it was at the same time that we were writing scripts for season one of the Percy TV show. And I found it very helpful in both cases to kind of break Percy's story down again from the beginning and think about, okay, who are these characters again? And, why should we care about their journeys and their personalities? And sort of I was building them up at the same time. With the second book, Wrath of the Triple Goddess, we were working on the scripts for the second season at the same time. So I was working on the sequel in both senses. And I did find that, for instance, the voices of our great actors um, were coming to me. And I was hearing them as I was writing Percy in this new book. And it really was nice. It brought kind of a new sense of freshness to the whole project.
Well, and you mentioned the cast there and how you hear them as you were writing. As I was reading over the weekend, I finished Triple Goddess on Sunday. It's so hard to see anybody else as the
Mm.
main three. And everything that you write, and as you said, you're informed by what you see and the cast that you're dealing with. It's so easy to see these three actors down the road 10 years from now. The Percy series has been a major hit. Oh, now we're gonna do the trilogy here that you wrote about Percy going off to college and the quest to get those college letter of recommendations from the gods. And it just blends so well, and you hear their voices coming through you as you put it onto the page. I was, sometimes everyone has their ideal vision of what a character would be or how a character would act. I think the casting of your three just just illuminates the written word. It brings those characters to life in so many ways, and seeing how what they've done in the first season, and now reading something that obviously takes place many years later, it just brightens the story to an unbelievable level.
Oh, I'm so
Um,
glad that you had that reaction. I certainly feel that way. I mean, I think the cast is just, they have the energy, and the vitality, the sense of humor, the voice, everything they need to embody these characters. And I agree with you that it's, everybody's going to have their own vision of what they look like as you're reading, and that's
yeah,
totally great. I think that should be encouraged. What we were looking for when we did our casting, and that's still true for season two, is who captures the character, who has that sense, that spirit to them that really tells me that they are the person that they're acting. And yeah, our trio definitely does that.
Well, and that comes across on the page too. And I think the fact that, as you're mentioning, you're working on the scripts for the seasons, and these books are being completed, you're basically progressing here to the point where, hello viewers, hello fans, here's what we've got now. You can imagine what they're going to look like in 10 years, and here's what you could potentially see down the road.
Mm.
The characters too. I mean, I'll use air quotes, enjoyed the movies to a certain extent because
Mhm.
it was just fun to see a story that I really enjoyed. Oh, there's the live action version.
Sure.
It had a great cast that didn't have the story, and the show had that great cast that had the story. I mean,
Mm.
Diora Goodjohn as Clarice. I mean, she was only in a little bit for season one, but I've read the series multiple times with at school or with my kids. I know what she's going to be getting in season two, and I'm looking forward to that because
Oh yeah.
the way she nailed that character is just, oh wow. I cannot wait for more there.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna get, I mean, so many great Clarice moments in
Yeah.
season two.
Wow.
Even more than you get in the book because we're able to sort of, because it's a different
Yeah.
media, we're able to cut away from Percy's first person point of view, and we can see scenes that happen that are canonical that would have happened in the book, but you couldn't be there because we were in Percy's
Yeah.
head.
You're
But
following his story from
now we
his
can cut
eyes.
away to Clarice and see what she's doing during that time.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. We're talking about cast, we're talking about story, and you're the writer. It's been almost 20 years since The Lightning Thief came out. It's been wow, 18 years since I had a student tell me once, "Oh my God, that's the best book ever." And a teacher who I was covering for, "Don't you dare read those books to the kids. I'm doing that when I come back." And it's that moment. That's where my very first experience with the Lightning Thief and Percy Jackson
I love
led me
that.
to, oh, hey, there's that book that kid was telling me about, and purchasing it and reading it. We've got that growth where he's not understanding who he is, and Percy's coming into his own and understanding, oh, the demigods, my father is Poseidon. And now he understands that. With the Chalice of the Gods, there was that hesitation of, do I want to go to college? How is this going to upend my life? To him coming to the realization, yeah, this is what I want to do. Is my next step. The Wrath of the Triple Goddess, though, it continues on that theme of we're moving on, and we're moving on, and we're moving on to what things are going to take place. I'm hopefully going to get into New Rome University. Annabeth and I are going to go there. Things are going to change. Sally herself, his mother, is moving on. She's going to have a new child. Grover, poor Grover. He's
Yeah.
realizing my best friend's about to leave and move to the other coast. Uh, That's what I get as a theme from your book. And are you, how do I ask this in the precise way? Are you, Rick, kind of feeling like I'm setting my characters up to move on, and you're getting ready to push them on, and perhaps maybe one day you'll come back to them, or somebody else might?
Hmm. Yeah, that's very perceptive, and I think you're right. I do think that Hecate, being the goddess of crossroads, this
Yeah.
is definitely her moment, her theme, her realm, as the characters are at crossroads of all different kinds. Sure, I mean, the last few years have been crossroads for me and for the characters in a lot of ways, and they're going in new directions that I never anticipated they would go in. What that will look like and where they go, I honestly don't know. I don't have any immediate plans to write again about the trio after, at least in this format, with the first person narrator, after I wrap up this trilogy. But I don't know. And it
Yeah.
has been really fun to explore new perspectives. And the TV show has helped me do that too, to sort of take the story I know, but look at it from different points of view. And that's been really neat.
Well, and I think that's, I'm a little bit older. It's almost 20 years since I first read it. And some of the kids I taught in grade six that year are into their 30s now. Oh, wow, time has flown. Um, you know, I think my appreciation for where you're going with this story, that the idea of growing up and moving on. I mean, my own children, we watched the first season of the show and loved it. My daughter has read all the books. My son is currently on The Last Titan. Um, and so it's definitely a part of the story. And of the Galzel family, we're all experiencing this tale in various different forms. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned the whole idea of the crossroads, and Hecate comes as the goddess. And she's the goddess who has, I dare say, maybe torment, possibly agitate or bother in this book here. She has told all the other goddesses, no, you're not to ask him to do anything. He must house and pet sit for me. And you mentioned the idea of the crossroads. Were you originally thinking of Hecate because of your feelings towards where you want the story to go, or is it just because the story of Hecate is incredible and offers so many opportunities?
Well, I think it's both. I love Halloween, so on the surface level, there was
I
just
was
that.
wondering about that. Yeah.
I mean, we're in October. How could you not do the goddess of witchcraft, right? So there was that level of it. And then, yes, absolutely, I was aware of the story of Hecate and the fact that Percy and Hecate have actually never really met. They've
Well,
never
yeah.
really interacted much. So that was interesting to me. And also the idea of the crossroads. Yeah. I mean, if the first book in this new trilogy, The Chalice of the Gods, was about getting older and what that means, with the cup of immortality and the goddess of youth and all that. This one is about crossroads. What's it going to look like when things change, and how is it going to change? So yeah, it made sense to me on a number of levels, and it was a lot of fun to explore.
Well, and that's for people that are watching this interview, we're talking about big themes about the idea of growing old and getting older and moving on. And between those themes, this is a really exciting, fun book. There's a lot of humor. I'd be reading at night and laughing, and my wife would say to me, "What? What's wrong?" I'm like, "No, no, no. This is a really good part. It's hilarious." And between that, though, between the humor, between the coming of age story, I guess really is what it's becoming this series. You also take Percy into a level of empathy, and when the polecat and the hellhound have broke loose, Hecuba and
Deal.
Gale,
Yeah.
yeah, when they break loose, there's at a point where Percy almost connects on a, I don't want to say spiritual level, but like almost a mind meld, to use my Star Trek terminology,
Yeah.
where Percy, the 18-year-old in New York City, is living at the trauma of Hecuba and seeing the fall of Troy and feeling her trauma, her misery, her sadness, her despair. And I wonder if Hecuba was she your original choice? Were you looking at going with her, or was there something else? Or did you find that it was important? I want this to have multiple levels here. I want the readers to be able to see different things here.
Yeah, I mean, I one of the fun things about writing mythology is you have guidelines because I try to follow the structure of the myths and not deviate. Like, I'm not going to suddenly say Poseidon is the god of lightning, or something like that. Um, and Hecate does have these two pets in
Yeah.
mythology. We know she has Hecuba and we know she has Gale, and they follow her around. Just having pets as an Olympian god that's pretty unusual. So I knew that, but I also had a lot of latitude because there are so many stories about Hecuba, and on the other hand, there are so many missing pieces. A lot of her background, and Gale is even more so, is never explained. So I have to sort of do some detective work and some deduction and sort of think, okay, why is it this way? It doesn't say in the myths what makes sense. How can I fill in the gaps with some, sort of logical inferences and something that's going to be compelling and interesting? So that was my challenge here, and it was very enjoyable to let Percy kind of, as you say, mind meld in his own way with the pets and be empathetic toward them.
Well, and just going back to what we were saying before, and I think that's the level of the depth that you have put into the story. And granted, it's not a for for anyone who doesn't know, it's not a 500 to 600 page
No.
uh, you know, door doormat or doorstop. It's a very slim novel of a few hundred pages where, I'm going through like, okay, yeah, let's see what happens. Oh, heck it, okay, yeah. And you want it was I dare say it was almost like a curveball you threw me the moment that he connected with her. And, just the way that you had crafted her pain.
Mm.
I was like, oh, wow. That was impressive. It made me think for a moment because it she's a hellhound and her appearance is, oh, she's Hackett's pet. She is just an animal that you have to look after. And your your story has kind of flipped the lid on that, and you proverbially put Percy in her shoes and walked
Mm.
maybe not a mile but a few steps to understand that. And I thought that's going to hit big for a lot of readers who maybe just look at this as myths, but
Mm.
in reality there's so much truth to it of being able to build that empathy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that's one of the reasons the myths are still with us, why they have such staying power, because they are, at their core, very human stories about things that we still deal with today, thousands of years later. I also love the chance to talk from Percy's point of view, but as a 17 going on 18-year-old kid, rather than a 12-year-old kid as he was in The Lightning Thief, because there are certain conversations that he is ready to have now
Yeah.
that most 12-year-olds they're not quite there yet. They don't really have this sort of toolbox to sort of unpack those big emotional empathetic moments and talk about them. That's not obviously true of every kid, but that tends to be the case, that as you get older, those things get easier. And I think Percy is able to do some things in Triple Goddess that he was not able to do back in the original series.
Well, and it's interesting that you mention it that way because one of my she's grown to be one of my favorite characters, and that's Percy's mom, Sally. Which, by the way,
Mhm.
Virginia Call is fantastic. She
He's
just,
amazing.
oh, just yeah. I could spend an hour telling you about how amazing I think she is and how well she just brings that character to life and the strength that she gives to that character.
I very much
Um,
agree. Yeah.
well, um, I'm going to get sidetracked and go on and on. What I was going to say is though that about the idea of those big conversations, and I won't go into too much detail because I don't want to spoil it for any readers. But there is a moment in the book where Percy sees, and as you said, it's a Halloween story. There are ghosts. He sees a ghost of someone's past, and it's not necessarily the spirit of someone who has passed on, but as you put it in the book, the ghost of regret or of distant memory. And it leads to a really informative, powerful, but a very sweet moment with his mom where he realizes that this ghost is connected to Sally. And he says to her, he's almost inquiring, Mom, do you regret like what happened? Do you regret everything that has taken place and all the issues and problems and running from the Minotaur? And you see Sally in the noble position that she has, where she says, "No, of course, I'm very happy with my choices because, I got you." And it's such a it's such a reaffirming moment for a child who, as we've talked about, is about to go off into the world himself.
Mhm.
To hear from his mother that affirmation of, yeah, I absolutely love you. Everything that you have done, I love that about you, and I will always love you. And I'm just wondering if maybe Sally, I just my own thought is Sally kind of the glue that kind of holds everything together
Mm.
throughout the stories, because she has appeared in the Trials of Apollo, at least if my memory correct is correct.
Mhm.
She's appeared
Yeah,
there, and she's
yeah,
been that voice for everyone.
yeah.
I don't know, did you intend to do that, or am I just reading really deep here?
No, no, I think you're right. I think she is the glue, and I think she is the mom, that we all hope that we will have a relationship like that with our mothers. And she is ideal in that sense. But she's also very human and has, her own stuff going on. I think for Percy, she's absolutely his North Star. Yeah, I mean, he can always rely on Sally, and he knows that. And I think that's probably the only thing that's gotten him through to this point in his life. So yeah, you can't really understate Sally's importance, not just to Percy, but to all of his friends as well. And yeah, I too could talk about Sally for hours. She's great.
Yeah. Well, and I think, between, raising of the ghosts and the whole issue with the world famous New York architect who turns out not to be a very nice person.
Mm.
What a shock. Somebody from the 1600s may not be all that wonderful and charming and friendly and
Yeah.
easygoing. I think between the comedy, the joy, the adventure, and then just having those parental moments of, kids come to that age where going on 18, one of the biggest decisions in your life. I'm going off to university. It's on the other side of the country. I'm going
Yeah.
to be away from everything that I've known, and am I capable of doing that? It was very, very touching to see. Yeah, go ahead. It's almost that push that, parents need to give. Whenever I used to take my son in grade one to school, I used to have to walk him to the fence. I'd have to
Mhm.
put him inside. The teacher would close the gate, and I'd just have to turn around and walk. And I'd have to trust that, he'd be fine. He may be unhappy, to say the least, for those first 2 minutes, but by the time I was gone, he was having a great day. And just watching it on the text and reading it and feeling that, such a positive point to all readers. So thank you for
Well,
that.
yeah. I mean, I know what you're talking about as a parent myself. Any parent can relate to that. It's tough,
Yeah,
but it's a critical moment, and we hope that we do the right things and make the right choices, and just offer love and support to our kids and be there for them.
exactly. And hey, if you make your mistakes, you make your mistakes, and you learn from them, and hopefully you grow. So,
Exactly.
Rick, I have one last question, and then I'll let you go because I do understand that you're fairly busy tonight here. Um, the Rick Riordan Presents stories, the Percy Jackson stories, Magnus Chase, they often they're either given or they're placed in that label of middle grade or YA or whatever section of the bookstore that they go. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that we should have labels on our books? Do you feel that, Percy Jackson belongs in the middle grade area, or should it just be at the front of the bookstore?
It doesn't bother me at all. I mean, that's probably because my background is a middle school teacher. I mean, I can't, that's to what degree I was able to tell these stories. It was deeply informed by my classroom experience and my knowledge of those middle grades. So, I'm always going to kind of have that as my target, simply because it's what I know. And when I'm writing, I still have my sixth graders in their classroom sort of mentally in front of me. And I'm imagining, okay, how can I tell this story in a way that middle graders will find exciting and relevant and fun, and above all, that won't bore them? So that's very true. On the other hand, I'm well aware that ever since The Lightning Thief, there have been kids as young as 7 that have picked up the books. I wouldn't, recommend it for every 7-year-old, but if it works for them, great. all the way to people in their 80s who have enjoyed the books. And that's awesome too. So in that sense, I think it can be helpful to say, okay, this is targeted at middle grade, but to keep in mind also that in my opinion, if you enjoy the book, you're the right age for it.
Perfect. Well, and that's, any of the reviews that I've done for your work or for the authors in the Rick Riordan Presents, which by the way, the next one coming out on Tuesday by Judy Lynn. I'm
Oh,
only into the first chapter, and wow, the eeriness of her
oh,
sister, of Ruby's sister leaving, and the way she has described. Oh, it's got me hooked
it's
for
a,
sure. It's
oh, thank you for taking a read. It's a good October story for sure.
well, and your description in the beginning of, yeah, I was just going to read a couple of chapters, and then all of a sudden I look up, it's nighttime, and I've read the book. I just couldn't stop.
Right.
I can see that very much on the first chapter. If I was able to sit down for a few, I wouldn't be able to finish.
Well,
Rick,
happy reading. I'm glad you have that ahead of you.
I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on yet again another book of brilliance, dare I say, but also the depth that you continue to evolve your characters. The TV show, I'm looking forward to season two. So are a bunch of the kids in this household here. And I wish you all the best
Oh,
and good
thanks.
luck
Great
to you in the
talking with
future.
you, Bill. Thank you so much.